Hey guys, today I'm trying to do a Lost Centuria's character tier list. Um, I want to go about this. We're not going to talk about any of the soul gems, and they drastically can change where these things fall. So if you have like a crazy legendary soul gem for some of these characters, it completely throws this list out of whack. I'm just going to go for the base characters because it's hard to know. Most people don't have all the gems yet, so it's kind of hard to see what their impact is really going to be. And I don't think it's fair to rank them like that yet. So let's try to do this quickly. First, we have Artemil. He goes in B tier. He's a single target nuker. He strips, which is nice, but he doesn't really hit hard enough to justify. Most of the other nukes just hit so much harder that you would just rather have them most of the time, regardless. Beretta's S tier. The accuracy on his dots is super good. He puts a ton of pressure on the other team. He's essentially forcing every team right now to run, cleanse, or die. Uh, God tier. Bernard goes in A tier. Having that ability to push the pace of the battle is super nice. I love Bernard. Not a staple, not a must-have, but a very good character. Camille, what did I put her at? I think is a B tier as well. She doesn't really have enough going for her. You have to combo her with someone like Chloe, who I will be putting in C tier, to even matter. And even still, that combo is not very good. And then Chloe, by the invincibility is nice, but no immunity is kind of garbage. So she's kind of garbage. Colleen is also in C tier. The heal isn't nearly enough from her to make a difference. The mana that you spend on her could be used on other people to just straight up kill things or protect you in a more efficient manner. Copper, D tier, one of the worst tanks. He doesn't do very much damage. He only hits like the front line as AoE. Just all around one of the worst tanks, one of the least useful. Um, the Water Fairy, I'm gonna put our D tier as well. The single target cleanse and heal is okay. It's actually one of the biggest heals in the game, but the single target cleanse is just not good enough. Again, you just can't justify that mana cost most of the time. Finn will go into C tier. He's a great water nuke, but the way the meta is right now, there's not a lot of like meta fire tanks that you got to bust through. Um, so he's not that great. If we see some fire tanks, he might go up, but C tier for now. Ganymede, I will be putting into B tier. Um, he's actually pretty good. I use him as a tank just because of the soul gem that I have, but I found more often than not when I try to use his ultimate, I just die because of it. It's just not a big enough of difference to justify that 5 mana cost. So it definitely has some uses, but not the craziest overall. Hathor, um, gosh, struggle. I I think I put Hathor in the B tier as well here, but the sleep is just not as good as a stun. Um, any damage wakes them up, and if you're running anything like Beretta or any AoEers at all, you can't have her. It's really limiting. So there might be some builds that come out later that push her into A tier, but for now B tier. Hraesvelg, I believe C tier for this bad boy. Um, the brand is nice. He just doesn't quite do enough damage. Um, maybe the runes will make a difference, but not enough damage, and he doesn't really AoE the whole field, just half. Hua also C tier. Um, again, she just doesn't hit hard enough to justify. She does have a nice ability that burns the mana if you kill, but it's harder to kill because she's doing less damage than some of these other nukes. So not my favorite, but probably like a borderline B C tier character. Jean is A tier. She's one of the best off tanks. I wouldn't put her as my main tank, but an off tank that comes. She's got great utility, heal, and invincibility, at a certain point, and she's tanky enough to soak a little damage. So, great character, A tier. I think this chick's name is Kali. She's in B tier. She's an okay nuke. The unrecoverable can be annoying sometimes, but it's not ridiculous. I see people running her, and I'm never like mad that they're running her, but I'm never scared of her in any facet either. Um, Kamoon will be in B tier. He's pretty good. The heal is nice. He's decently tanky. He can hit pretty hard. He's kind of got a little bit of everything. I'm not mad at Camoons. I've definitely seen them clutch games out. So B tier, good character, just not insane is the only problem. That's kind of what you have to compete with up here. Konamiya, D tier, garbage. Just not single target cleanse, and you get a card back, which is not really pertinent if you have good cards altogether. Um, the likelihood that you need the same card twice in a row to survive is pretty, niche. Um, Kun goes straight to A tier, and I almost want to put him in S tier. He is crazy good tank. One of the best tanks in the game, in my opinion. Paired up with Jean, he's so hard to kill sometimes. So A tier, awesome tank. Lapis also goes in A tier. She can be super annoying and do so much damage. Um, and in those like, if you can kill a front line and she's on your back line, she can really almost 1v4 certain comps by herself, which is super scary and you have to be aware of. So Lapis super duper strong. Lucian goes into B tier, and he's kind of borderline C tier to be honest. He's good in some AoE builds, but overall he doesn't do very much damage, so I'm not impressed. Mav we'll put in C tier. He's a decent off tank, but there's just other things that do his job much better. Um, Not super impressive. Um, Megan goes into B tier. She has accelerate and the attack buff, which is nice. So it's a little bit, if you want to be a little bit more maybe aggressive than Bernard, Shannon's really or Megan's really good. So um, I actually like her a lot. McKean will go into A tier. She's a cleanse, which is super important for things like Beretta, things like Ganymede, and other things. The cleanse and then the redistributive HP. So super A tier, and she would be S tier if not for. We're gonna go out of order a little bit here. This chick right here, Deanna. Deanna also cleanses, but then adds a defense buff on top of that. Uh, she is like I would put her in almost every comp that I make. There's no reason not to put her in. She's just all over good. And then her unicorn form heals and has some other extra effects that are nice. Uh, she is crazy good, and her filling the cleanse spot is the only reason McKean's not there. So Nikki is A tier. The debuff is hard to get rid of, or the dot, the Teddy, which is awesome. She does good damage. Um, I think she's A tier, and again, she's one of those borderline S tiers. Um, maybe I should have made a thing in between, but great monster, great backline killer. uh, we have Orion. I'm gonna put him. Oh man, I gotta put him in B tier. I almost feel like he's C tier just because I feel like he doesn't really bring much to the table. If you have a great group of people that you love all their abilities and you have a great team, you don't really care if you get three different ones most of the time. Because there's still three great abilities. So, but I've seen a lot of people run him. I just he's one of these borderline C tier guys. Like he's not the greatest in that tier. Perna, A tier, almost the same thing as Nikki, except he can hit the entire enemy team, which is awesome. And you have to cleanse his debuff twice. He is up here with the borderline S tiers. These three right here are just a different level of A tier. Um, they are really really good. Poseidon also goes in A tier, but he's just a solid A tier. Um, the deceleration is really nice, especially if you're running him with Bernard. Um, but overall, an A tier, super solid uh, character. Uh, this chick right here, we're gonna put her in C tier. Uh, almost thought about putting her in D tier. She's just not very useful. She's only AoEing half the enemy team. You get a defense break, but I most of the time find I'd rather use that 3 mana somewhere else um, rather than a lackluster AoE. Rakuni is D tier, one of the worst characters in the game. He seems good at first glance, but when he uses his breeze, it shows the enemy which character got the mana decrease. So if you decrease Perna, I now know that you probably are going to use Perna, and I also know that you have a Perna card in your hand, so I could keep an immunity or a cleanse on hand to counter you. Um, and this game is all is everyone knows about counters, and if I know what you have, it's just that much easier to counter it. So bad, bad, bad. Never use. Ragdoll A tier. He can really shut some people down. He hits pretty decent, but if you hit a Beretta or something, it'll make the enemy really, really think about dotting you up again. He's a little bit harder to use. You got to kind of wait sometimes, bide your time, but amazing character that can change the tide of a battle very, very easily. Rakan. Rakan goes in C tier and almost D tier. He's good, but he doesn't hit hard enough. He gives himself immunity, which is nice, but he just does everything worse than Kamoon. And he doesn't have a stun. He does like about the same damage, I guess, and then he gives himself immunity but no defense buff. So he's just a really bad tank, which is unfortunate. Ramagas or Ramagod also goes into A tier, a solid A tier. He does a really good job of beating up Kamoons, but he's going to struggle with a lot of the other stuff more so than Kamoon, so it's kind of a trade off there. I personally think Kamoon's way better, but he is a great tank as well. He can keep himself sustained for a long time. Royd, absolute garbage. He is kind of a frontliner, but he does a single target damage that's crap. Uh, just don't even put him in your group, please, please, or do, and maybe I'll win more. Hey, Shannon is a C tier monster. The defense buff is nice, the attack buff is nice, but I just find that with the 2 mana, it's like I could build up to something better. I'd be using my mana a little bit more efficiently, and most of the time, uh, the defense buff attack buff isn't the most crucial thing that won me the game. Um, I just haven't really found her to be impressive. Seek though, Seek is impressive, but he goes in B tier. Now he goes in B tier. He hits so hard, but he goes in B tier for one reason only, and it's because Kun, the water golem, is kind of his kryptonite, right? If you can't get through the Kun and your single target attacker Seek, it really sucks. So the way the meta's flashed out right now, Seek's B tier, but he's a phenomenal single target nuke. Now, discount Ari here goes in A tier. Uh, she's harder to use and timing based. She can be useless sometimes, or she can single-handedly win you games. She's hard to use, but so effective at what she does. And Sophia also goes up here because, again, it's a meta thing. Her and Seek, I feel like, are on the same level. She brings a defense break, which is nice because she can utilize her own defense break because she hits 3 times. Um, but she counters Kun, one of the best tanks, and she also counters Ramagas, right? She doesn't have a trouble with either of them, so that's why she gets A and Seek gets B. Uh, Tagaros gets a C tier, kind of a lackluster fire nuke. He just not super impressive. Tsarion is A tier, and I want to make say something quickly about him is with the right gems, this man is S tier god level, so just be aware of that. But as is, he's A tier. He does great AOE damage. He does Oblivion, which helps counter, you know, Diana and Perna, some big players here, which is nice. So he's a good monster to have. Thrain, C tier. I'm tempted to put him in D tier, but he has a combo with Beretta, which is nice. Overall, by himself, he's garbage, and the setup for Beretta Thrain combo is really niche and kind of like if you didn't see that coming when someone had Beretta and Thrain, you probably deserve to lose. So I don't think the combo is very strong, and I don't think he's very strong. Now, Vertihile, I originally had him in B tier. I've moved him up to A tier because I think he does everything that Kamun does, uh, the Fire Anubis, but it just a little bit better. I think he's really good backline or maybe like a your 4 slot in your front line. Uh, for damage. And then Wunsa is S tier. He is great. He kind of fills a similar role as Diana, but he gives you that shield, which also negates so much damage, which is awesome. And he's reactionary, which means he's a little bit harder to use. You have to counter with him, but if you counter with him, you can literally waste an enemy's turn. You know, where as Diana, you're not really wasting their turn. You are, just cleansing what they do. Um, so yeah, he can be insanely powerful if used correctly. And I don't want to stretch this out until too much longer. I know it's already been a long video. I try to keep it short, and simple. If you guys want to know anything about these characters, or you want to know more about the gems or anything like that, let me know in the comments, and I'm gonna try and answer you guys. And if you seem interested, we'll get another video out. And also like, share, subscribe. It's corny and it sucks to have to ask you guys to do that, but it really does help my channel, and hopefully that'll help me keep putting out content for you guys, and we can all grow together. So y'all have a good day. Later.